The Karathi Collective had ruled the Andromeda sector peacefully for 3,000 years. Their crystalline cities floated serenely among the stars, powered by harmonious energy that had never known the touch of violence.
Oh.
But now they're perfect. World was ending. Deep in the void of space, something ancient and hungry was awakening. The Devourers had been sleeping for millennia, waiting for the galaxy to grow fat and complacent. Now they emerged from the dark between stars, bioships, the size of mountains moving with terrible purpose. They didn't just attack worlds, they consumed them entirely, leaving nothing but empty space where entire civilizations once thrived. The first Karathi colony to encounter them was Nexus 7, a research station studying peaceful energy harmonics. Dr. Kylanth was reviewing quantum resonance patterns when the sensors screamed warnings across the facility. What appeared on their screens defied all understanding of natural law. "By the great crystal," Kylanth whispered, watching massive organic shapes emerge from hyperspace. "What are those things?" The Devourers fell upon Nexus 7 like a plague. Their feeding tentacles, each hundreds of meters long, latched onto the station's hull and began dissolving the metal. The Korathi's beautiful energy shields, designed to deflect cosmic radiation, were useless against creatures that literally ate energy. Within 6 hours, Nexus 7 was gone. Not destroyed, consumed. Every atom absorbed into the growing mass. Of the Devourer fleet, the news reached Korathi Prime in a wave of panic. Prime Speaker Veltar, leader of the Collective, stood before the Great Assembly as reports flooded in from across their territory. Colony after colony was vanishing from their network. The Devourers weren't just killing, they were erasing entire worlds from existence. Honored Speaker Trembled Communications Officer Zaylon, Harmony Station reports the creatures are approaching. Their system? They estimate 37 hours until contact. Veltar's crystalline form flickered with distress patterns. The Korathi had built their civilization on peace and cooperation. They had no weapons, no military, no concept of war. Their ships were designed for exploration and trade, not combat. "Have we tried communicating with them?" Veltar asked desperately. "All attempts have failed, Honored Speaker. They don't respond to any frequency. It's as if they're operating on pure instinct, the instinct to consume." Meanwhile, light years away in a different spiral arm of the galaxy, Admiral Hyenwoo Kim stood on the bridge of the UES Thunderstrike, humanity's newest deep space exploration vessel. The bridge hummed with activity as his crew monitored long-range communications arrays, searching for signs of intelligent life. Earth had achieved faster-than-light travel only 50 years ago, making humanity the youngest spacefaring species in the known galaxy. Most advanced civilizations viewed humans with a mixture of curiosity and caution. They had labeled Earth a Class 12 death world, a planet so hostile that any species evolving there would be considered extremely dangerous. Lieutenant Commander Song Min Lee suddenly straightened at his communications station. "Admiral, I'm picking up something unusual. Multiple distress signals on emergency frequencies." "Put it through, Lee." The bridge speakers crackled to life with a transmission that made everyone stop what they were doing. The voice was alien, melodic like wind chimes, but the desperation was unmistakably universal. "This is Prime Speaker Veltar of the Korathi Collective. We broadcast this message to all spacefaring civilizations. An ancient evil has awakened in our sector. Devourers consume everything in their path. Our worlds are dying. Our people are being erased from existence. We have no weapons, no defenses. We offer our greatest technologies, our most precious knowledge, to any who can save us. Please, if there is mercy in the galaxy, help us." The message repeated in 17 different languages, each more desperate than the last. Captain Jinnah Park, Hyenwoo's second-in-command, was already pulling up tactical displays and star charts. "Sir, intelligence reports indicate the Korathi Collective controls over 200 star systems in the Andromeda sector. They're known as peaceful traders and researchers. No military capabilities whatsoever." Hyenwoo studied the data flowing across his screens. The Karathi were offering technology that could advance human civilization by centuries. But more than that, innocent people were dying while the galaxy stood by and watched. What's our current fleet strength? He asked. All available ships would total about 200 vessels, sir. But Admiral, deploying our entire fleet would leave Earth's outer colonies completely undefended. Heian-Wu thought about Earth, a world that had forged humanity through constant struggle. Hurricanes, earthquakes, predators, diseases, wars. Humans had survived everything their hostile planet could throw at them. They had been shaped by adversity into something the peaceful galaxy couldn't understand. The Karathi asked for help. Heian-Wu said firmly. Send the recall order to all fleet commanders. Emergency deployment authorization. They're about to learn what happens when you call upon Deathworlders. Within hours, human ships were jumping to hyperspace from across the solar system. Battle cruisers, destroyers, carriers, support vessels, the largest human fleet ever assembled, racing toward a distant sector to face an enemy that had devoured entire star systems. They had no idea what awaited them. But they knew one thing. For certain, humanity had never backed down from a fight. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a pack of wolves emerging from the darkness. 200 ships materialized in perfect formation, their angular hulls bristling with weapons that gleamed coldly in the starlight. Admiral Heian-Wu, Kim, gripped the command rail of the Thunderstrike as the tactical display lit up with nightmare fuel. Karathi Prime hung before them like a wounded jewel, its beautiful crystal cities flickering as massive organic shapes latched onto the planet's surface. The Devourers were unlike anything in human records. Living ships, the size of entire cities, their hulls pulsing with veins of bioluminescent energy. Dozens of feeding tentacles, each as thick as a skyscraper, extended from their bodies and burrowed deep into the planet's crust. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Songmin Lee from the communications station, his voice barely audible over the bridge's tense silence. "They're not just attacking, they're consuming everything." The sight was beyond horrifying. Where the Devourers fed, the planet's surface was literally dissolving. Mountains crumbled into dust, oceans boiled away into nothing, and the crystalline cities of the Karathi collapsed as their very atoms were absorbed into the growing mass of the bioships. "Sir," reported Navigation Officer Young Ho Nam, his voice shaking, "sensors indicate at least 40 Devourer vessels currently feeding on the planet. Each one is approximately 12 kilometers in length." Captain Janab Park studied the tactical readouts with growing alarm. "Admiral, they're not just destroying the planet, they're growing larger with every passing minute. The bioships are literally incorporating the consumed matter into their own mass." Around Karathi Prime, the elegant vessels of the Karathi fleet danced through space like beautiful butterflies trying to fight tigers. Their ships were works of art, flowing curves of crystalline metal that moved with grace and harmony. But against the Devourers, they were pathetically helpless. Their energy weapons, designed for mining and peaceful purposes, barely scratched the organic hulls of their enemies. Even worse, the Korathi's defensive shields were useless. The Devourers didn't fire energy weapons, they fed on energy itself. Every shield that touched them only made them stronger. Communications from the Karathi flagship, Lee reported. Prime Speaker Veltar is requesting immediate assistance. Heian-Wu watched a Karathi cruiser get enveloped by feeding tentacles. The beautiful ship dissolved like sugar and acid, its crew's final screams echoing across emergency frequencies. "Well, ships, combat formation Alpha," Heian-Wu commanded. "Prepare for immediate engagement." Captain Donghyun Choi commanded the destroyer Iron Fang in the fleet's vanguard. His ship was a brutal wedge of armor and weapons, designed by humans who understood that space was not a peaceful place. As the Devourers turned their attention to the new arrivals, Donghain felt his crew's tensions spike. "Contact in 30 seconds, reported his weapons officer. "All kinetic batteries loaded and ready. Fire when ready," Donghain ordered calmly. "Let's show these things what Earthborn weapons can do." The Iron Fang's main guns erupted in synchronized fury. Tungsten slugs the size of telephone poles streaked across space at 30% light speed, carrying enough kinetic energy to level city blocks. The primitive weapons, barely more advanced than medieval catapults by galactic standards, punched through the Devourer, bioships like bullets through tissue paper. The results were spectacular. The massive creatures, which had shrugged off the Karathi's energy weapons without concern, suddenly found their hulls exploding in fountains of organic matter. The tungsten slugs didn't just penetrate, they created massive cavities as the kinetic energy transferred through the bioship's bodies. Direct hits on targets Alpha and Beta, the weapons officer reported with grim satisfaction, both vessels showing severe structural damage. Target their feeding. Appendages Donghayan ordered, watching the tactical display update in real time. Cut off their ability to consume the planet. The human fleet spread out in a formation that would have terrified any civilized military observer. Instead of maintaining safe distances and coordinated fire patterns, they were actively seeking close combat. Human ships dove between the massive devourers like fighter jets attacking bombers, their smaller size allowing them to target weak points that larger vessels couldn't reach. Plasma cannons superheated sections of biohull until they burst like balloons. Nuclear torpedoes detonated inside feeding tentacles, severing the connections to the planet below. Railguns fired streams of depleted uranium rounds that carved deep channels through organic armor. The space around Korathi Prime became a storm of destruction unlike anything the galaxy had witnessed. The humans fought with a savagery that shocked even themselves. These weren't precise military strikes. This was violence in its purest form, refined by millions of years of evolution on a world that demanded brutality for survival. On the Korathi, flagship Prime Speaker Veltar watched the battle through sensors that could barely process what they were recording. The crude human ships were systematically dismantling creatures that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia. "What manner of beings fight like this?" Veltar whispered to his aide, his crystalline form flickering with patterns of awe and terror. "They show no fear." His aide, communications specialist Dorlin, was monitoring human communications frequencies. What she heard made her crystal body pulse with nervous energy. "Prime Speaker, the humans are actually enjoying this. Listen to their battle communications. They're laughing, singing war songs, challenging each other to kill counts." Listened to the translated human chatter and felt something cold settle in his core. These weren't reluctant saviors. These were apex predators who had found worthy prey. Prime Speaker Dorlin whispered, "I believe we have summoned something far more dangerous than our enemies." 3 days after first contact, the Korathi learned the true meaning of human warfare. What they witnessed defied everything they understood about civilized behavior. Admiral Heinwu had established a command center on their largest space station, Crystal Haven. And the transformation was nothing short of terrifying. The station had been a masterpiece of Korathi architecture. Flowing curves of living crystal that pulsed with gentle bioluminescent light. Sacred meditation chambers where the Korathi communed with cosmic harmony. Art galleries displaying 10,000 years of peaceful culture. Gardens where exotic plants from 100 worlds grew in perfect balance. Within 72 hours, the humans had turned it into a fortress of war. Major So-Young. Han led the engineering teams that swarmed through the station like industrious ants. Her soldiers moved with practiced efficiency, their hands never still as they rewired, rebuilt, and retrofitted everything they touched. The beautiful energy conduits that once carried harmless power for lighting and climate control now fed massive plasma cannons that could punch holes through asteroid fields. "Status report," Sergeant So-Young called to her second command. Tajono was supervising the installation of missile batteries in what used to be a children's learning center. "Sir, the station's defensive capabilities have increased by 3,000%, Tajon reported, wiping grease from his hands. "We've got 47 weapons emplacements online, automated defense grids covering all approach vectors, and enough ammunition to fight for 6 months straight." He paused, glancing around at the Korathi civilians, who watched the transformation with barely concealed horror. "The locals are disturbed, sir." So-Young understood why. Humans didn't just fight, they turned everything into a weapon. The peaceful meditation chambers now housed ammunition factories where human engineers worked around the clock producing explosive rounds. The art galleries had become strategic planning centers where holographic displays showed attack patterns and kill zones. Even the gardens were being converted into hydroponic farms to grow combat stimulants and medical supplies. The Korathi watched their sacred spaces being violated by beings who saw warfare as just another engineering problem to solve. Prime Speaker Veltar had given the humans permission to use the station, but he hadn't understood what that would mean. "They're animals," whispered Korathi Council member Thyalan to her aide. "Look how they move, how they think. Everything is violence to them." Her aide, a young Korathi named Belinari, watched a human soldier casually field strip a plasma rifle while eating lunch. "Council member, I think that's exactly the point. They're not civilized like us. They're predators. The most disturbing." Changes came when Captain Minho Yoon arrived with his Marine battalion. These weren't the ship crews the Korathi had grown somewhat accustomed to. These were ground fighters. Bred for close combat in hostile environments, they moved through the station like living weapons. Their armor scarred from battles across a dozen worlds. When the first Devourer managed to attach itself to the human cruiser Retribution, the Korathi expected the crew to evacuate, or try to detach the creature safely. Instead, they watched in horror as Minho's Marines suited up for boarding operations. "You're going inside that thing?" asked Dr. Kylanth, Korathi scientist who had witnessed the first Devourer attack. Minho checked his plasma rifle's charge indicator and grinned. "These parasites have been feeding on civilized species for centuries. Time to show them what uncivilized looks like." The Marines didn't just board the Devourer, they invaded it like a virus. They cut their way through biocorridors filled with acid that would have dissolved Korathi bones in seconds. They fought in chambers where the temperature reached levels that melted most metals. They breathed recycled air and atmosphere so toxic that one breath would kill most galactic species. But humans had evolved on Earth, where every day was a struggle for survival. Acid rain, poisonous gases, extreme temperatures, these were just Tuesday on their homeworld. Private Jungsu Park led a squad through a Devourer feeding chamber, stepping over pools of organic acid while creatures the size of bears tried to tear them apart, just like the sulfur caves back home, he muttered, tossing a thermal grenade into a cluster of feeding pods. The explosion sent biomatter splattering across the walls, but the humans kept advancing. They planted explosive charges in vital organs, severed neural connections with chainsaws, and turned the creature's own digestive system against it. Within 4 hours, the Devourer was dead from the inside out. Dr. Yoongi Nam made the breakthrough. Discovery, while studying, captured Devourer specimens in her makeshift laboratory. The station's former concert hall now housed equipment that would have impressed Earth's top research facilities, all cobbled together from human and Korathi technology. "Admiral," she called excitedly as Hyan-Woo toured the facility, "I found something incredible." She led him to a containment unit where Devourer parasites writhed in various solutions. Their biotechnology is incredibly advanced, but it has one critical weakness. It can't adapt to Earth-based biology. "Explain that." "In terms a soldier can understand," Dr. Yonji pulled up holographic displays showing microscopic warfare. "These parasites are designed to integrate with any alien biology they encounter. They've consumed hundreds of species, learning from each one. But when they try to infect human tissue, the display showed Devourer parasites being systematically destroyed by human white blood cells. Our immune systems are treating them like a common virus. 10 million years of evolution on a death world has made us immune to their primary weapon." Hyan-Woo studied the data with growing excitement. "Can we weaponize this?" "Already working on it, sir," Yonji replied with a grin that would have terrified the peaceful Korathi. "I'm developing airborne agents based on human antibodies. We can turn their own feeding process into a death sentence." The war machine was awakening, and the galaxy was about to learn why Earth was classified as a death world. The Devourer, Hivemind, made its first strategic error in 10,000 years. For millennia, it had consumed countless species across the galaxy, learning from each one by absorbing their knowledge, their biology, their very essence. This process had made it unstoppable. Every species it encountered only made it stronger and smarter. So when the Hivemind captured 3 human Marines during a boarding action on the bioship designated Target 7, it followed the same pattern that had worked for thousands of conquests. The massive creature opened specialized absorption chambers and began the process of consuming the humans. Expecting to gain their knowledge and adapt to their fighting methods, The result was catastrophic beyond anything the hive mind had ever experienced. Commander Jae-Soon Kim was leading a fighter squadron through the debris field of a destroyed Karathi colony when his sensors detected something impossible. The massive devourer bioship that had been feeding on the planet's remains was ... melting. Control. This is Falcon Leader, he reported, circling the dying creature at a safe distance. Target 7 is showing massive internal breakdown. Hull integrity dropping rapidly. From his cockpit, Jae-Sung watched in fascination as the kilometer-long bioship began dissolving from within. Sections of organic hulls simply liquefied and sloughed off into space. The creature's feeding tentacles writhed in apparent agony before going limp and breaking away from its body. "Sir," his wingman reported, "I'm detecting similar breakdowns in bioships across the entire sector. Whatever's happening, it's spreading through their network." Back on Crystal Haven, Dr. Yoonji Nam was monitoring the phenomenon from her laboratory. With barely contained excitement, the biological weapon she had developed was working even better than she had hoped. "Admiral," she called to Hyeon-woo, "the Devourers just made a fatal mistake. They tried to absorb human tissue, and our antibodies are spreading through their entire bionetwork like a virus." The screens around her showed the microscopic war taking place inside the Devourer bioships. Human antibodies designed by evolution to fight off Earth's deadliest pathogens were treating the Devourer's organic systems like a disease to be eliminated. The creature's own interconnected biology had become their weakness. "Long until they're all affected?" Hyeon-woo asked. "At current spread rate, every Devourer in this sector will be compromised within 6 hours. But sir, this is our chance. We need to hunt down every single one before they can adapt or warn the main hive." Hyeon-woo nodded grimly. All ships knew. Mission parameters. We're going hunting. This was what made humans truly terrifying to the galaxy. Other species would have been satisfied with driving off the attackers, celebrating their defensive victory. But humans had learned a different lesson from their violent homeworld. You don't just defeat your enemies. You hunt them down and eliminate the threat completely. Commander Jae-Sung received his new orders with grim satisfaction. Squadrons. Pursue and destroy. Don't let any escape to warn the main hive. His fighter wings spread out across the star system like a pack of wolves, tracking down every Devourer bioship as they tried to flee. The creatures were dying, but they were still dangerous. A wounded predator was often the most vicious. Fighter. Squadron Delta cornered a medium-sized bioship near the system's outer planets. The creature was clearly suffering from the biological weapon, its hull pulsing with infected veins, but it still had enough fight left to lash out with energy weapons. "This is Delta Leader," reported Captain Soo-Jin Lee. "Target is heavily damaged but still operational. Beginning attack run." The human fighters dove on the bioship like hawks attacking a wounded deer. Their weapons were primitive by galactic standards, but they were perfect for this kind of hunt. Kinetic rounds punched through weakened hull sections, while plasma charges ignited the creature's internal fluids, but the real hunt was happening on the ground. Colonel Hijen Kong led the 23rd Marine Regiment in an assault on the Devourer feeding worlds, planets that had been converted into massive biological factories for growing new bioships. These worlds were nightmares of organic architecture in hostile environments. The atmosphere was thick with spores and toxic gases. Acid rain fell from crimson skies, and the ground itself was alive with feeding tendrils that tried to consume anything that moved. "Just like the Amazon during poison season," muttered Sergeant Woo Jin-han as his squad pushed through a forest of carnivorous plants. "Except these ones are bigger." The Marines fought their way through environments that would have killed most galactic species within minutes. Their sealed armor protected them from the acid rain, while their enhanced physiology allowed them to function in gravity that would have crushed weaker beings. Private Young-Soo Park was part of the advance, a reconnaissance team that made the discovery that would define the rest of the campaign. Deep in a canyon filled with organic structures, they found the Devourer nursery worlds. "Sir," he reported to Colonel Kong, his voice tight with controlled emotion, "we've found their breeding grounds. Thousands of young Devourers, maybe tens of thousands." The sight was beyond disturbing. The canyon was filled with cocoon-like structures, each one containing a developing devourer. Some were already the size of small spacecraft, while others were just beginning to form. If they were allowed to mature, they would spread across the galaxy like a plague. Colonel Kong studied the tactical situation with the cold calculation of a professional soldier. In the galactic community, destroying young would be considered barbaric, a violation of every civilized code of conduct. But these weren't just enemies. They were an extinctional-level threat that had already consumed countless species. "Sir," asked Lieutenant Minyun Ko, "what are your orders?" Kong looked at the alien nursery, then at her soldiers, humans who had volunteered to travel across the galaxy to protect species they had never met. The decision was clear. "Burn it all," she commanded. "Use everything we've got. Make sure nothing survives to threaten another species." The bombardment lasted 3 hours. Plasma artillery, incendiary rounds, and biological weapons turned the nursery canyon into a furnace. The Marines watched impassively as thousands of potential world killers were eliminated before they could mature. On Crystal Haven, the Karathi leadership watched the human military operation with a mixture of awe and horror. They were witnessing the systematic extermination of a threat that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia, carried out with ruthless efficiency by beings who saw it as just another day's work. "They're not saving us," whispered Prime Speaker Veltar to his aide. "They're hunting. This is what they do." The aide nodded slowly. "Prime Speaker, I think we're witnessing the birth of a new apex predator." The hunt continued across 17 star systems, and humanity showed the galaxy what it meant to be truly dangerous. 6 months after the first distress call, the final battle of the Devourer War took place on a dead world at the galaxy's edge. The planet had no name. It's just a coordinate designation. Sector 7 Alphanine. It was a world of black rock and sulfurous winds, where the last Hive Queen had retreated to make her final stand. Admiral Hyenwoo Kim stood in the command bunker that his Marines had carved into the planet's hostile surface, watching the final assault through tactical displays. The Hive Queen was massive, larger than any devourer they had encountered. Her bioship stretching nearly 20 kilometers from tip to tail, she had burrowed deep into the planet's crust, turning the entire world into her fortress. Final bombardment. "Commencing," reported Colonel Haijin Kong from her position at the artillery command post. All plasma cannons charged and ready. The bombardment was like watching the birth of a new sun. Dozens of human plasma cannons fired simultaneously, their beams converging on the Hive Queen's position. The creature's death scream echoed across subspace frequencies, a sound of rage and agony that would haunt the dreams of every human soldier who heard it. When the light faded, Admiral Hyenwoo walked across the scorched battlefield to stand over the creature's dissolving corpse. The Hive Queen's body was breaking down at the molecular level, her organic technology unable to maintain cohesion without the neural network that had controlled it. "It's over," said Captain Jinapark, joining him at the edge of the crater. "Every devourer bioship in the galaxy has gone silent. The hive mind is dead." Hyenwoo nodded, feeling the weight of what they had accomplished. Humanity had just announced its arrival to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible by exterminating a threat that had terrorized civilized species for millennia. Sir Gina approached him with a datapad, her expression troubled. "We're receiving communications from over 40 different species. They're all asking the same thing, which is, they want to know if we're going to conquer them next." Hyenwoo looked out at the human fleet orbiting the dead world. 200 ships, scarred and battle-tested, crewed by soldiers who had fought their way across 17 star systems. These weren't exploration vessels anymore. They were instruments of war. Forged in the fire of the most brutal campaign the galaxy had ever witnessed, the fleet could conquer half the known systems. Before anyone could mount effective resistance, every species in the galaxy knew it. Humans had demonstrated a level of military capability that made them advanced. Civilizations looked like children playing with toys. "What should I tell them, Admiral?" Na asked. Hyenwoo was quiet for a long moment, thinking about Earth, that beautiful, terrible world that had shaped humanity through millions of years of struggle. They had evolved not just to survive, but to protect what they valued. Family, friends, innocent life, these were the things worth fighting for. Send a response to all species, he said finally. Humanity offers protection to any peaceful civilization threatened by galactic predators. We don't seek to rule, we seek to guard. The response that came back surprised even the humans. Within days, dozens of species were sending formal requests for protection agreements. The Velinary Collective, still rebuilding from a recent pirate attack. The Thymos Republic, worried about ancient war machines awakening in their sector. The Crystal Singers of Harmony Prime, whose beautiful cities were defenseless against any military threat. Back on Korathi Prime, the transformation was remarkable. Prime Speaker Veltar stood before the Great Assembly, but the chamber was no longer filled with the desperate fear that had marked their darkest hour. Crystal Haven Station, rebuilt and reinforced with human technology, orbited overhead like a protective guardian. My people, Veltar announced, his crystalline form pulsing with patterns of gratitude. 6 months ago we faced extinction. We broadcast our plea into the void, hoping someone would hear our cry for help. The assembly listened in reverent silence as he continued. The galaxy answered by sending us its most dangerous children. But we have learned something profound. The most dangerous can also be the most protective. The humans had not only saved the Korathi, but had shared their technology freely. Its advanced medical systems that could heal injuries the Korathi had thought permanent. Defensive systems that could protect their worlds from any future threat. Manufacturing techniques that could rebuild their civilization stronger than before. But most importantly, they had shared something the Korathi had never experienced, the knowledge that someone was watching over them. Across the galaxy, human fleets were taking up positions around peaceful worlds. They established bases on dead worlds and asteroid fields, places where no civilized species would want to live, but humans found perfectly habitable. Always watching, always ready, the Zenth Empire, known for their merchant fleets, found human. Patrol ships escorting their trade routes through dangerous sectors. The singing crystals of the melodic worlds discovered human listening posts monitoring their borders for any sign of threat. The peaceful farmers of the agricultural colonies woke each morning knowing that human warships stood guard over their harvests. For the first time in millennia, the galaxy's civilizations could sleep peacefully. They were protected by creatures from a world so hostile it had forged them into the ultimate guardians. Dr. Jungjinam, now heading the new Galactic Disease Control Center, had developed vaccines against dozens of biological threats that had plagued peaceful species for centuries. Her research born from humanity's violent evolution, saving millions of lives across the galaxy. Commander Jae-Soon Kim led joint training exercises, teaching alien pilots how to defend themselves against threats they had never imagined. His students were amazed by human tactics, strategies born from a species that had learned to fight everything from microscopic viruses to planetary disasters. The Devourers were extinct. Their bioships nothing but dead matter drifting in space. The galaxy was safe. And humanity had found its place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as the protectors no one knew they needed until the darkness came calling. Admiral Hyunwoo Kim stood on the observation deck of Earth's newest orbital station. Human ships patrol the void like electronic wolves guarding a flock. They had answered a call for help and discovered their destiny. The Deathworlders had become the galaxy's shield against the dark. And the universe was a safer place because of it. The end.